Hey everyone, welcome back to the FantasyPros Football Podcast. I'm Bobby Sylvester, joined as always by Mike Tagliere, and we're on Twitter at BobbyFantasyPro and at Mike Tagliere NFL. Tags, how's it going, man?
It's good, man. It's good. Obviously, we recorded the podcast last night, but I'm still pretty excited about the Bears going to the playoffs. And I just found out today that I am going to the Bears' first playoff game, whether it be Wild Card Weekend or the divisional game, that I have tickets secured. And I will be going to a football game, which is, as you know, it's just a rare thing for me to happen. But I said if the Bears made it to the playoffs that I'd be going. And I'm happy, man. They clinched the NFC North in Week 15.
Tags, I know you're happy about your Bears and everything, but I've got to poop on this parade because yesterday was a disaster. It was the worst week of fantasy football ever.
It might have been, and I think I saw a stat on Twitter yesterday that Week 15, this week that we just witnessed, that it was the lowest scoring week in the NFL over the last 2 years. And that kind of makes sense because like when you look at fantasy championship like teams that are going in, I saw some games that like the winner had 70 points in their matchup, and it's just nuts, man. Like so many
and like great teams too, like teams that went 13-0 in the regular season are just getting destroyed in the playoffs. It was a troll week for sure.
Yeah, it was nuts. It was definitely not fantasy football's best day, that's for sure. But I guess it's like the survival of the fittest who had luck on their side. And this is, we never said that this is a 90% skill game. I still stand by the best teams. Like more often than not, if you're a good fantasy player, you're going to make the playoffs in your league. I think that's like 90% skill. I think 10% does come down to luck. But once you get in the playoffs, like legitimately, you're talking about like maybe 60% skill, 40% luck. It's just, it's any given Sunday, kind of like the NFL. But yeah, it's unfortunate that some of the things that happen, like to Aaron Jones, to Lamar Miller.
Keenan Allen. You can say Keenan Allen like 5 times. I had him in pretty much every league, man.
You could say Jared Goff too, but Jared Goff played the whole game.
Yeah, Chris Godwin didn't get a target. The Cowboys got shut out in a good matchup. There was just so much to it. But obviously, if you're listening, you survived the carnage, and we're going to be talking about waiver wire pickups for your championship week. And we've got a pretty good waiver wire week. At least there's 4 or 5 running backs I wouldn't mind adding. We'll get into that in just a second. But first, Tags, let's talk some injury news. What's come out since you guys had the podcast yesterday?
Yeah, so a few things came out. Frank Gore is not going to play for the remainder of the 2018 season. It might be a career end to him. He suffered an ankle injury that's going to require him to miss time. I don't really know how to feel about that. We're going to talk about that within the waiver wire show here because once we get to the running back position, we obviously have to talk about players, who that might benefit who are on waiver wires. Aaron Jones, it was diagnosed that he has a sprained MCL. He's not going to be playing this week. And then you go over to Tyler.
There's no way he plays the rest of the year, right?
Doubtful. I mean, that's the thing.
Why would they? They're out of it.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like it's week 17 after this one, so I don't think that he plays the rest of the season. Honestly, and I think it's very possible that Aaron Rodgers might not even play the final 2 games. I don't think that they need to put him out there. I mean, what does he have to prove? What do they, you're just risking injury at that point. So that, and then Tyler Boyd, it was announced that he has a sprained MCL. He initially said that he was going to be fine for this week, but players say that stuff all the time. And when you're dealing with a sprained MCL on a team that is going nowhere, like the Bengals are, I don't think that Tyler Boyd plays this week, so it's rather significant.
I want to walk through a couple of news items, too. We don't really need analysis on all these, but it looks like Nick Foles is going to start Week 16. Wentz is not headed to IR, so we might see him in the playoffs if the Eagles make it. And right now, I think they've got a 35% chance all of a sudden. That would be dangerous, man. If they make it to the playoffs with a healthy Wentz, that would be a lot of fun to watch.
I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, though. I mean, I kind of laugh because, like, Nick Foles, I love that people are trying to drum up this storyline that Nick Foles is the reason they won that game. He's not.
No, he wasn't very good.
He was captain of the offense, I guess, and he threw up some 50-50 balls that went, the right way. And, he didn't give away the game, so that's always good. But, I mean, he threw for...
They played super physical. That's why they won.
Yeah, their defense is the reason they won. Like, the defense, handled that Rams offense. And, that's another thing is that the Rams offense, it's now been 3 straight weeks. Some people are like, oh, it was the Bears hangover. They're still seeing nightmares of the Bears. Well, they weren't very good against the Lions the week either. So ever since the bye week, Jared Goff has been off. Yeah, I don't think the Eagles are going to make it into the playoffs unless Dallas completely combusts.
They've got to beat the Texans and they've got to beat Washington.
Yeah, I don't think they beat Houston. I mean, the thing is, if they beat Houston this week, it's definitely possible because I could see them beating Washington. But more news just broke, Bobby, that Ito Smith went to the IR. So
not surprised.
It doesn't change much. I mean, Brian Hill is the backup behind him.
It's not like Coleman's going to suddenly get 20 touches a game. It doesn't change anything, really.
It doesn't really change anything in terms of that. I mean, if you're desperate, I guess that's when you say Brian Hill is the one that pops up because he's next in the depth chart, but they're playing the Panthers. It's not a good matchup. So
yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, I want to circle back around really quick because the Eagles don't need to beat out the Cowboys for the NFC East to make the playoffs. They need to beat out the Vikings, who are half a game ahead of them right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Vikings, their remaining schedule, they're playing the Lions this week. That should be an easy win. And then they're playing the Bears at home in week 17, which honestly, that game could be like a preview of the wild card weekend if the Vikings win.
I hope so, man. NFL playoffs are going to be a lot of fun, except for the Texans getting in there, probably getting a bye week because I just don't think they're very good. I mean, 10-4, I'm sorry if you're a Houston fan listening, but I watched them and I think, man, this is like a 500 team.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy to think that they went on a 9-game winning streak in there when teams were, well,
they didn't play anybody.
Yeah, their pass rush the last 3 weeks just hasn't been there. I was looking at that earlier today. They're, I think, 4th lowest mark in the NFL for sack percentage over the last 4 weeks. They're just not getting there. And if they don't get pressure on the quarterback, that secondary just doesn't have the talent to hang with wide receivers or pass catchers in general. So that defense needs to step up because that offense is not designed to kind of go through shootouts. I don't believe they are. I don't think they have the depth at wide receiver or tight end to do that. Now Lamar Miller's banged up, but with how bad the Eagles defense has been in terms of like against the run, I just don't know. I mean, that's an interesting game. That game will change a lot in the playoff picture though.
Texans have not beat anybody. Like they beat the Cowboys twice before Amari Cooper was rolling. Besides that, who else did they beat? The Broncos, the Titans. Like those are the best teams that they've played. So we'll see who the Texans really are in the playoffs. A couple other news items. Todd Gurley's going to get his knee checked out. Obviously that is going to be a big deal one way or the other.
Yeah, they're saying that they're expecting him. So Ian Rappaport just tweeted it was about 15 minutes ago that I saw something pop up saying that they're expecting him to play in week 16. So you should have him for the fantasy championship. Obviously, John Kelly got some snaps this week. Didn't do too much with him, but it was just a weird situation where he wasn't planning on going into the game. And then Todd Gurley was talking him up, trying to, boost his ego before he went to the game. But it seems like Gurley's going to play. So
I'm not buying it. We'll get to that later though when we talk about John Kelly. I'm not buying it. I don't think Gurley's playing.
You don't?
No. Well, I'll save it though. I'll let the listeners hang on the edge for a little while.
All right.
Hunter Henry might actually be coming back. I don't know if Stephen A. Smith's comments prompted this, but Henry coming back for the playoffs, man. If the Chargers weren't already dangerous, oh man, that would be awesome.
I don't want to see this. Like, I just feel like why?
If they've got a chance at the Super Bowl, why not?
Yeah, I get that, but if you risk like further injury, like ACLs, like yes, modern medicine has allowed us to do some crazy things with ACLs, but you're talking about what has it been 6 months since his torn ACL?
Yeah, it used to be like, a 14-month injury, and then Adrian Peterson got it down to 10 months or something?
Even now, it's like, I think like 10, 11 months, that's like the max. I don't think Hunter Henry's coming back. I don't think they're going to risk that with their...
Or if he did, he's just like a red zone guy.
Yeah, I just don't see why you'd put him at risk. I mean, he's the future at tight end. I mean, you have some pass catchers in the red zone. Mike Williams is coming into his own, so I can't see it, though. I can't.
Keenan Allen needs to come back, man, if the Chargers want to do anything, because... I don't know, like Mike Williams was fine and everything, but Keenan Allen's a beast. The only other news I want to chat about, Leonard Fournette is going to be limited this week in practice because of the foot injury he's been battling. They also just took him out in the second half. Like, he didn't play at all.
Yeah, it was dumb. Apparently, they said that was part of the plan, that they wanted to see what they had on the depth chart.
The plan of tanking so you can get a top 5 pick, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know what they're thinking. Honestly, the Jags team is just so disappointing as a whole. Like, that defense is playing well. That offense is disaster. Like, they need a complete rebuild. I mean, do you think that Marrone makes it through the season as the coach? Do you think that he's going to get fired this offseason?
I don't know, man. They've got to, because the locker room's just in shambles.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it. It's like their defense is still elite. I don't really care what anybody says. I still think that their defense is fantastic.
When they try, yeah. Like when they didn't try, 2 weeks ago and just got destroyed by Tennessee. Obviously they're not, but yeah, when they want to, they shut out the Colts, right? So I think Jalen Ramsey leaves this offseason, though.
There would be a line of teams waiting to get a shutdown cornerback. Like that's a difference maker in a secondary. So yeah,
maybe they can go get Nick Mullins because Jimmy G's coming back, and Mullins actually looks really good.
I don't know. I mean,
maybe it's just Shanahan. Maybe they can trade for Shanahan too.
Maybe he's going to go to the Patriots. I mean, I would imagine the Patriots are going to have to get a quarterback because we're near the end.
Or maybe they just stick with Mullins and give Jimmy G back to Bill Belichick.
Oh boy, that's not going to happen.
All right, man, let's move on over to the waiver wire. But first, I want to talk about the sponsor of today's show, Leesa Mattresses. And, I've been raving about Leesa Mattresses for a while. And, they give us an ad read, but I want to go a little bit off the script first, okay? The best thing about Leesa Mattresses is that they're healthy. When I was mattress shopping, it's like all these mattresses, you're ingesting nasty chemicals the first few years you sleep on them. Plus, the springs in a lot of mattresses function as an antenna for electromagnetic radiation. Not with the Leesa mattress. There's nothing like that. I love my Leesa mattress. I would not trade it for any bed out there. Guys, a quality night's sleep helps you recover from distractions faster, prevents burnouts, make better decisions, improve your memory, and overall just make fewer mistakes. It's not marketing, it's just science. To design a better mattress, Leesa leveraged 30 plus years of experience and hundreds of hours of testing to develop the perfect mattress for all body shapes and sleeping styles. Leesa's mission is to provide a better night's sleep for everybody, and through their 110 program, they donate one mattress for every 10 they sell. That's 26,000 mattresses and counting. Leesa strives to leave the world a better place than they found it, and it doesn't stop with mattress donations. Together with the Arbor Day Foundation, Leesa plants one tree for every mattress they sell, and they're committed to planting 1 million trees by 2025. Don't miss these winter savings. Get $160 off a Leesa mattress at leesa.com/fantasypros. That's LEESA.com/fantasypros. Tags, how much do you love your Leesa, dude?
I am a huge fan of it. And the thing is like, for those who know me, they know that I've been through major back surgery, and I had to get like this firm mattress that I woke up stiff every day, and I kind of blamed my back. I kind of blamed it. I said, this has to be my back, and I just have to deal with it throughout the rest of my life. I woke up and like literally like my feet were numb. Like I felt tingling in my toes, and we switched to the Leesa mattress, and I'm not even exaggerating when I say this. I don't remember the last time that I had that tingly feeling in my legs. Like I think there's enough support for someone with a bad back, and I also believe that it's soft enough for you to get a good night's sleep. So like I absolutely love this mattress, and it's weird. Most people they realize their mattress is bad when they complain about it, but nobody really appreciates it when you have no problems. I've had no problems.
That's a really good way to put it, man. All right, let's move on over to the waiver wire, where my number one pickup is John Kelly. Now, hear me out, Tags, because I know he's not your number one based on what you said, but let's say there's even just a 25% chance Todd Gurley's out this week. I think John Kelly is so much better than the other waiver wire pickups that even with just a 25% chance at a top 5 fantasy running back, which is what John Kelly would be, perfect matchup against the Cardinals, he'd have an elite workload, and plus John Kelly is really good too. He's in an offense where they run against stacked boxes less than any other offense in football. I think John Kelly would immediately be awesome. So if there's a 25% chance, he's my number one, and I think it's higher than that.
Here's the thing. I think Todd Gurley's going to play. I really do, because the Rams suddenly have something to play for. Because, by the way, if the Bears win their final 2 games and the Rams only win one of their final 2 games, the Bears are going to get the 2 seed because the Bears hold the tiebreaker between the 2 teams. Because they won, obviously, 2 weeks ago. So that the Rams have something to play for. It's no longer like, oh, they locked up their number 1 and 2 seed. They really don't care from here on out, blah, blah, blah. They do care. And especially, if the Saints win.
Yeah, but they get the Cardinals and 49ers. So is it really going to be a challenge?
Right. With the way Jared Goff is playing, they need to run the football, like against the Cardinals, because the Cardinals.
John Kelly will be just fine. If you saw him, I know you saw him in the preseason. I know you remember this.
I watched his college tape as well. And that's the thing. I like John Kelly. I feel like he's a Duke Johnson type player.
No, Brian Westbrook. He's that good, Tags. Watch this week. When he starts, you watch him, and you tell me again that he's Duke Johnson.
I think he's a Duke Johnson-esque player, and I think Duke Johnson's a fine player. That's the thing. I'm not saying John Kelly's bad. I'm just saying that he's like a player that I don't think they ever want to give him 20 touches. But here's the best part, Bobby. Even if you pick up John Kelly and let's pretend that Todd Gurley plays and that they're going to split somewhat of carries. It's very possible. Arizona has allowed 384 carries against them this year. That's 27.4 a game. So therefore, they've allowed a league high 17 rushing touchdowns, a league high 1,804 rushing yards. So when you look at all this, you're like, maybe there's production for both of them. The thing is it's the fantasy championship, and it's a whole lot of risk. If you're searching and you're desperate and it's like, I'm going to take a Hail Mary here, okay, I'm okay with that. But I think there's other options that I know are going to get 15 plus touches on the waiver wire this week, and that's why John Kelly is not near my number 1 spot.
I understand that, man, but there is a chance that you've got a top 5 running back and you're going to let somebody else pick him up. If you don't get Kelly, you can go pick up Alfred Blue. You can go pick up Elijah McGuire in a good matchup. And I know you're not excited about those guys, but the drop-off between Jamal Williams, Kalen Ballage, Alfred Blue, Elijah McGuire, it's not that much. The difference between Kelly and Williams, who's my number 2, is substantial. It is not even close. Like, look at what Jalen Samuels did for Pittsburgh, right? Who's the better running back? Is it John Kelly or Jalen Samuels?
Well, it's John Kelly.
Yeah, it's John Kelly. Who's the better offense to be in? Is it the Rams or is it Pittsburgh?
I'd say it's Pittsburgh for running backs.
Wow. I don't think so, man.
No, they're both good offenses, don't get me wrong. But with the way that the Rams offense is moving or lack of moving right now, I would say the Steelers. Like earlier in the year, I probably would have said it was a toss-up because no matter it's almost like whoever's in those systems is going to produce top 5 numbers. That's how I feel.
I think that's fair. Yeah, Pittsburgh has been playing a lot better than the Rams lately. But, if I would have asked you the question 3 weeks ago, I guess you said it would be a tie. I think that most people would have said the Rams because they'd go up against stacked boxes less often than any other team in the NFL, and it's not really close. I mean, just think about Todd Gurley before when Jeff Fisher was the coach, and he was going up against stacked boxes all the time, and he was the worst running back in football, right? He wasn't actually, but his stats look that way in terms of efficiency. And now they're the most efficient offense for running backs. You can say that's Todd Gurley. I say it's the offense.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you in the offense. And I think that, John Kelly is a 3-down back, so he can catch the ball out of the backfield. And that's why I'm not disagreeing. If I knew that Todd Gurley was going to be out, 100%, he'd be number 1. I just think that Todd Gurley plays, and I think that's our difference. And
yeah, I mean, if you're Sean McVay and you've got John Kelly waiting in the wings and you want Todd Gurley to be healthy for the playoffs, are you worried about Arizona, or you just say, I'm going to get Gurley healthy for 1 week and let Kelly just go nuts?
But if you lose by sitting Gurley, it's almost like the whole Trubisky thing. People like talked about the Bears and like that they lost to the Giants, like that whole entire situation, and people start second guessing him. This is the first time in Rams history, well, not Rams history, in Sean McVay's history where he's lost back-to-back games as a coach of the Rams. So it's like all of a sudden the sky is falling. People are questioning his decision making. Jared Goff sucks. I'm not saying that. This is like the whispers that people are saying.
I mean, is the sky falling if there's no actual fans, though?
That's true. There's more Eagles fans there last night than there were Rams fans, which is really upsetting. Like, that's a playoff team. You have more than enough people in that city. I have no idea what's going on.
People in St. Louis are so mad about this, by the way. Like, they will never shut up about what the NFL did to them.
But no, here's the deal. If you are looking at the waiver wire this week and you're like, I'm just trying to block my opponent, or I'm trying to grab a running back as a Hail Mary, like, yeah, John Kelly might be a fine pickup there. Like, I get that. But if you're someone that you have injuries and you're dealing with and you need a running back, like you lost Aaron Jones, like, you can't wonder if John Kelly's going to play. Like, you have to play this guy no matter what. Jamal Williams is the number 1 pickup.
I've got Jamal Williams over Ballage too, and I know a lot of people are going to say Ballage is the number 1 pickup this week. I disagree on that. I've definitely got Williams. Like, I know, you watch him, and he's the least impressive ball carrier besides LeGarrette Blount in the NFL. Like, he's just not very good. But you know what? He's going to be a workhorse. He was a workhorse last year for about 8 weeks. And in those 8 weeks, guess what? He was a top 10 fantasy running back because opportunity is king. That's what we're going to get, and a great matchup against the Jets. I love the pickup.
Yep, that's exactly where I'm at with it. The Jets are not a very good football team, and it's not like the Packers are great, and I'm not saying that they're the Packers of old, but I do think that they're a potent enough offense to where Jamal Williams offers you top 24 playability in this matchup, and that's why, to me, he's my clear-cut number 1 running back that I would pick up. Kalen Ballage is not even my number 2 running back. He's not my number 3 running back. He's actually number 4 for me.
Okay, now why is that? Do you think that Kenyon Drake's going to get more touches, or that Ballage is just not good? You hate the matchup?
I want nothing to do with the Dolphins as a team. Like, in terms of like their fantasy players, like, I want nothing to do with them. Like, I would rather let somebody else pick up Ballage and start him against the Jags. Good luck.
I know. You don't know if Kenyon Drake's going to get more touches. I'm not messing with this one either, man.
Well, we do know now that Gore isn't going to come back. Like, he's done. They're saying that he's like for sure done for the year. He's not playing again. So it really is Kenyon Drake, and it is Kalen Ballage. But we've done this game. Like, Kenyon Drake is a far better running back than Kalen Ballage. I mean, Adam Gase hasn't put Drake on the field, but that doesn't mean he automatically is going to put Ballage on the field because he had 12 carries for over 120 yards or whatever it was. That's the thing, is Kenyon Drake has had games like this, like when he gets touches like every single time, but Adam Gase just doesn't put him on the field. Like, and he came out in a press conference and said it had nothing to do with an injury. It was just the way that they planned the game. I think Adam Gase has gotten too cute, and I think it's like, oh, we're going to be unpredictable with our running backs. How about who gives a crap? You put the most talented one out there, and you play the football game. Kenyon Drake is by far and away the most talented running back on this team. Kalen Ballage is a ridiculous athlete. If he gets in the open field, he's going to outrun you. He has crazy size speed.
If he gets in the open field, I mean,
his vision sucks. Like, his vision is awful.
You know who he is, Tags? You watch him, he's Latavius Murray. So ask yourself this question. If you take Latavius Murray and you put him in the Dolphins offense, we're not excited about him with Minnesota. You put him in the Dolphins offense, even if you guarantee 15 touches against Jacksonville, I'm not starting him.
Yeah, I would have him in like RB4 territory. Like, I'm with you. I don't think Kalen Ballage is someone that he wasn't even starting on his own college team. Like, You know what I mean? Like, no, I'm sorry.
He's a great athlete. He's going to get his opportunity. Even if it happens this week, though, you don't play him against Jacksonville. So, Tags, who do you like? Is it Alfred Blue, Elijah McGuire, Zach Zenner, Wendell Smallwood, Keith Ford? There's a lot of options here. Deontay Foreman, Kenneth Dixon.
Well, I think Lamar Miller is going to play, so I'm like Alfred Blue and Deontay Foreman are way down the list for me. But Elijah McGuire is my number 2. He's clearly the number 1 running back there. He received tons of touches. 18 touches this past week in a tough matchup against Houston. And granted, if he didn't score a touchdown, people would be looking at him a bit differently, saying that he was a bust. But that was a tough matchup. Houston has been brutal against running backs. I was looking at that earlier today, and Houston, over their last 5 games, have not allowed an entire team of running backs to rush for more than 56 yards. So it was a brutal matchup for him. Trenton Cannon got some passing down work, but the Packers, they've lost so many players in the front 7. They have a weak linebacker core to begin with. The front 4 is dinged up.
Jordan Howard just ate them alive. And Elijah McGuire, Tags, I'm sorry, I know you're a Bears fan. Elijah McGuire is more talented than Jordan Howard.
A different type of player, for sure.
I mean, the coaching staff compared him to LaDainian Tomlinson, right?
Yeah, the skill set of, I know. I like McGuire as the number 2 player here. I also have Kenneth Dixon ahead of Kalen Ballage because, Dixon this past week, he didn't take over the starting role, and Gus Edwards looked fine, but it's a 5th straight game where Gus Edwards hasn't seen a target, and Kenneth Dixon looks fantastic. Here's the thing. The Ravens, their opponents since Lamar Jackson has taken over have sucked. They've been legit terrible, outside the Chiefs. And the Chiefs haven't even been playing at 100% lately. They're missing some players on offense. Their defense is starting to tumble. Now the Ravens are going into LA. They're going to play the Chargers. That's a tough matchup. That's really tough. And I don't think they're going to be able to control the ball and run it 40 times like they've been doing with Lamar Jackson. So if you have to go to more of the passing game, Kenneth Dixon's the one they've been involving more in the passing game.
And Ty Montgomery's out, by the way. So it's Dixon on 3rd downs.
Yeah, that's the thing. They had Ty Montgomery as a scratch last week. So I think Dixon, this is a game where it's like you're going to start to see Gus Edwards. It's like he relies on game script. And if the game goes negatively, which, I mean, the Ravens are 5.5-point underdogs, so they're expected to be in negative game script, that will affect Gus Edwards and positively impact Kenneth Dixon.
You all remember those Adrian Peterson turd games? That's going to happen this week to Gus Edwards. I'm not starting Gus Edwards. I wouldn't start Kenneth Dixon, but I would play him over Edwards. And that's the thing about pickups this week is you're not going for, hey, long-term, who's going to get the most touches, who has the most opportunity. No, it's this week. What's the matchup? What's the game script? And Kenneth Dixon is a better pickup than a lot of these guys. I agree.
Yep, that's why Ballage, to me, seriously, I have him at number 16 overall in my waiver wire rankings because I want someone else to pick him up and not me.
So you do think Lamar Miller's playing, but let's say we get news that they're going to sit Lamar Miller this week and Alfred Blue is the starter, or is it going to be Deontay Foreman that's the starter? Do they split carries? What do you do?
Yeah, it would definitely be a split. I mean, I was looking at this earlier today, as I mentioned, the Houston team as a whole, and over the last 4 weeks, it's been more of a timeshare than people realize. Lamar Miller has 48 carries, Alfred Blue has 41. So Deontay Foreman was activated off the PUP list a couple weeks back, and he has not been active. It's going to be really telling where even if Lamar Miller plays, they might have Deontay Foreman active for this game just because they might need that third running back to make sure if something happens to Lamar Miller's ankle. This is a situation to monitor for sure, but I do think that Alfred Blue is someone that's probably going to see, 10 plus touches in this. And here's the thing, like the Eagles used to be like a dominant run defense that everybody wanted to stay away from. Over their last 6 games, they have allowed 5 top 5 running back performances.
What?
Like, it's stupid. Like,
the Eagles?
I could not believe it.
How does that happen? What changed?
In 5 of their last 6 games, they've allowed a top 5 running back performance. They have been awful, completely awful against the run. Terrible.
All right, Tex, so we talked about Houston. I think Zach Zenner's probably off the table against Minnesota. What about Wendell Smallwood? Is he the new starter in Philadelphia, or is it still Josh Adams?
No, we've seen this act before. To be honest with you, I don't want any part of that. And honestly, Zach Zenner might be a better start than people are giving him credit for. So Minnesota, they were a matchup that you wanted to avoid, but I mean, there's been 3 straight teams, the Patriots, the Seahawks, and the Dolphins. They've all rushed for at least 114 yards against them. They've also allowed at least 1 rushing touchdown in each of their last 4 games. The problem is that Zenner, it's very possible that Matt Patricia just basically put LeGarrette Blount in a timeout and was like, we'll go back to you. But it's definitely a three-way timeshare between Zenner, Blount, and Riddick. But as I mentioned, like the Vikings are not as bad as a matchup as some people think. And Zenner did see more targets, saw more targets than Theo Riddick this week. He saw 4 targets to Riddick's 3. And if for whatever reason we see Bruce Ellington out again, I mean, we could see Theo Riddick just kind of like mix in with the slot receivers and Zenner playing that pass catching down role, and that offers some playability. So, I mean, if you're sitting there trying to decide between Zach Zenner and Kalen Ballage, I think that's a real question.
That really surprises me, man. I was not expecting to hear that from you, especially because it's Zach Zenner, who you have just hated on. The very first conversation we ever had, Tags, was you just hating on Zach Zenner.
I think he's just like a guy that people think is better than he is. I think he's like a Toby Gerhart number 2, where it's just like, I don't think he's like the worst running back in the world. I didn't think Toby Gerhart was the worst in the world.
I think he's Christine Michael, man.
That's even worse.
I know it is, but they're both so athletic.
Oh, man. But no, Zach Zenner, he's a guy. He's just a guy that is walking into some carries, and, he should see, 10 to 14 touches. And I think that's more guaranteed work than we can say about Kalen Ballage. Now, both matchups are not ideal, but as I've mentioned, the Vikings have been struggling a little bit against the run. They're going to be on the road in Detroit. So I think Zenner's probably the better play.
Wow, man. Okay, let's move on. We've got one more team to talk about, and it's the Buffalo Bills. We probably shouldn't even talk about them, but if you're in a situation where you do need a running back and a lot of these guys are taken or you don't have the fab budget, Keith Ford, Marcus Murphy, what do we do?
Yeah, I'm guessing that Chris Ivory might return, LaShawn McCoy might return. So these are guys who are in a terrible, terrible offense. Their quarterback is the best one to run the ball on the team. I mean, Marcus Murphy apparently like dislocated his elbow in the game, and then they popped his elbow back in, which just sounds painful. I don't know if that guy's going to play. I can't imagine that he would play through that injury, but what do I know? I just don't want to attack that matchup against the Patriots. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball very much. Sure, you could rely on some passing down production, but I mean, do you really want to do that from Josh Allen? I don't. So I don't want any of these Bills running backs.
All right, any other running backs you want to talk about before we move on over to wide receiver?
Nope.
All right, man, let's move on over to wide receivers. But first, I want to remind you all, we've got a new website up. If you didn't listen to the DFS show, we put up bettingpros.com. Tags, can you tell them all a little bit about it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the same thing that we're doing on FantasyPros. So the way that I found FantasyPros was it was just like a website that had an aggregate of everybody in the industry kind of combined into one with rankings. And it's like, the bigger sample size you can get, the better. And we've kind of done that on the betting side. Betting has become legal in a lot of states. So we put together bettingpros.com, and that's where, we have a bunch of analysts together and we combine that aggregate thing where it's like, we talk about the entire ECR. We have an ECR of betting picks. So where if you're getting into the betting side of things, definitely check it out. It's just the same thing as the fantasy side, but you're getting all this advice in one place. And, again, that bigger sample size will make the difference in something so minuscule, like that little bit of difference in terms of betting when it comes to 55% or 58%. That matters so much.
Tag, so we do the accuracy contest over there, and last week you got top 3. And I was just outside the top 10 at number 11. I had another good week, but I just checked. I was at 61%. To get in the top 10, you really need to hit about 68, 70% most weeks. So I missed again, but it was another good week. Hopefully we can follow it up with another good week.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully I don't pick the Jacksonville Jaguars to cover a spread ever in my life.
I thought you would have learned your lesson, man. I've been betting against them for months, and I'm a fan.
Yeah, no, it was brutal, man. Like I thought Fournette would have a good game against Washington. I thought that the defense would stand tall, and they did. It's just the Jacksonville offense is so pathetic. They can't even, oh, God, I'm so mad about it.
Oh, it's awful, man. What did Cody Kessler have, 76 yards or something like that?
Yeah,
that was a good game for Jags quarterbacks.
Yeah, not great. Not great at all.
All right, man. Wide receiver, and Curtis Samuel is still available in over 50% of leagues. I can hardly believe this.
That's dumb.
Like, is it just 50% of leagues are inactive, like nobody's paying attention, or what? He's a borderline wide receiver, too.
Yeah, him and DJ Moore, I mean, you could make the case for either of them to be ranked over the other, and if DJ Moore was on your waiver wire right now, you'd go pick him up, right? I mean, Curtis Samuel is playing just as many snaps. He's seeing just as many targets. Cam Newton, if anything, I think Curtis Samuel's average depth of target is smaller than DJ Moore. So if Cam Newton has some shoulder issues, I mean, that wouldn't affect Samuel as much. So it makes no sense. He's definitely my number one wide receiver on this list that we have, because we kind of go by a list of players who are owned in under half of leagues. So to see him on this list is kind of crazy.
Plus he's going up against Atlanta, and they've got one good cornerback. He's almost definitely going to be on DJ Moore. I think Curtis Samuel eats this week. I'm probably going to have him in my top 25.
Yeah, and Cam Newton has been better at home over his career, so that game will be in Carolina, so 100%, and the Falcons have nothing to play for.
Let's say, though, that Carolina gets really stupid, okay? The last 2 weeks he had 11 targets and 8 targets. Let's say he goes back to 2 or maybe 3 targets this week. Would you still pick him up over someone like Robert Foster?
I would, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, is Robert Foster your number 2? Let's first clarify that.
No, he's not.
Okay, who is your number 2?
My number 2 is Deshaun Hamilton.
Deshaun Hamilton, that's a good pickup as well. I've got him number 4 right behind Taylor Gabriel. I think Foster, Gabriel, and Deshaun Hamilton are all really close for me. But would you pick up Samuel over Deshaun Hamilton if he gets 2 targets tonight?
I would. I still would. I mean, I don't ever take too much from a 1-game sample size unless I see something with Cam Newton that I really just don't like, or if like we see the snap counts dip, like if Devin Funchess starts playing over Curtis Samuel again. That's the type of stuff that would.
Even then, I'd still probably play him. Like, even if he went up and he put up a 0 like Traquan Smith, everyone was still like, oh, Traquan Smith, top 30 wide receiver.
Oh, boy.
Why wouldn't we do that with Curtis Samuel, who's done it 5 out of the last 6 weeks, not 1 time?
Yeah, I don't know. But the thing is, I mean, I'd rather grab Deshaun Hamilton then, because at least we know Hamilton's getting targeted. Like, even though Case Keenum has been terrible, like, Deshaun Hamilton, he started 2 games in his NFL career. In those games, he has 21 targets. He has 14 catches.
He's good, man.
Yeah, 93 yards and a touchdown on them. They were good matchups against San Francisco and Cleveland, but, I mean, at the same time, the Raiders have been struggling against slot receivers as well. Whereas, talking about someone like Robert Foster, we should probably talk about him because it sounds like you have him in your top 3. I don't.
Love Robert Foster, man. I watched the game tape, and I fell in love with this guy. He's good. He is a good football player.
But there's a few problems here, okay? He's a perimeter receiver. He's strictly perimeter, which means he's going to face Stephon Gilmore the majority of the day, and that's never good for any wide receiver, let alone one that has Josh Allen throwing him the football. So he's got a few things going against him in this game.
He's got 100 yards in 4 of the last 5 weeks.
I get it. But I'm telling you, the matchup is not nearly as bad as it's going to be this week against the Patriots. And the thing is, the Patriots coming off multiple losses, they're going back home. I just feel like this is like a game where it's like, the Patriots need a statement. Like, they need to get back on track because the playoffs are right around the corner, and they don't look good right now. I feel like
they could put all 5 secondary players on Robert Foster, and the Bills wouldn't be able to do anything because they have nobody else.
Yeah, Zay Jones. That's the thing, is we felt good about Zay Jones against the Jets, and then he obviously has fallen off the table. I think the same thing can happen to Foster.
He's so talented. I don't think it's going to happen. I think that he's a mainstay in fantasy football for years to come. I'm really impressed with the kid.
I'm going to hold you to that, Bobby.
Okay. Yeah, you remember this one. I said the same thing about Keelan Cole last year, too. So, and Deshaun Hamilton's kind of like Keelan Cole, right? Because he wasn't drafted super high. In fact, I don't think Keelan Cole was even drafted. I don't remember. But he's this older rookie, just polished, doesn't have much upside. And that's who Deshaun Hamilton is. He comes into a role where he's getting a bunch of opportunities, and he's a good route runner. He's going to make the best of them. So I like Hamilton going forward, absolutely.
Yeah, it's just the role that he plays in the offense is awesome. Like, he walked into that Emmanuel Sanders role, and that's where Case Keenum feels comfortable in that offense. And here's the thing is, so the Raiders, the stat I saw earlier, I can't remember where I found it, but the Raiders have 12 sacks as a team this year. And there are 11 players in the NFL who individually have more than that.
That's incredible. And one of them's Khalil Mack.
Oh, yeah, obviously. And he missed a couple games. But yeah, that dude's a monster.
Did you see him tackle someone with his butt? He sacked Aaron Rodgers with his butt, man.
That entire game he was being held, it was nonstop. Like, the guy, it got to the point with the refs where it's like they weren't calling holding penalties on the Packers offensive line because I think that they had no prayer. Like, legitimately, when Khalil Mack's coming at you and you're one-on-one as a tackle, good luck. I mean, that's not just me as a Bears fan. That's like me as a football fan. Watching that guy play defense is like so fun. And it's rare to say that about a defensive player, but guys like him, like Aaron Donald, those are guys that you could just sit there and watch them one-on-one and just admire what they do.
Who was the cornerback that caught an interception with his butt cheeks last year?
I have no idea.
Hold on, I'm gonna watch this so I can say who it is.
What is happening?
You didn't know that happened?
I know that there's been like wide receivers that have like.
It was Lattimore.
I know there's been cornerbacks who have trapped the ball like between their hand and their butt, but never in between their butt cheeks.
No, he actually caught it with his butt cheeks, man. Like,
no, with his thighs, you mean?
No, like with his butt cheeks. He just squeezed it and caught it, dude.
Dude, you know how big your cheeks would have to open up for a football to fit in there?
I don't know what to tell you, man. I'm watching the replay right now. It was against the Falcons. I think it was last year. And Lattimore, the ball was like tipped up in the air and he was laying on the ground. And it landed in between like his butt cheeks, and he just caught it. He squeezed his butt cheeks together and caught it.
Wow, this is fantastic stuff. I want to see video. Someone on Twitter, you guys are awesome on Twitter about letting us know like things about that we say on the show and kind of following through. I love your guys' participation in that. Send me, if someone has seen this.
I'm sending it to you right now. You can watch it while we're doing the show.
Yeah, send me a picture of it. Send me a video. Do something.
I might be exaggerating just a little bit, but not really.
Otherwise, this is going to be like an STD football league, a standard.
All right, man, let's move on. I've got Taylor Gabriel, number 3, as my wide receivers. He didn't get that many targets against Green Bay. I think against San Francisco, though, once they're finally out of the cold, I think Mitch Trubisky bounces back, and Gabriel goes back to being a 7-8 target a game type of guy. With that kind of workload against San Francisco, it's a solid play this week.
I would agree with you on that one. I think he's an awesome play, and that's the thing is I have him as my number 3 receiver behind Deshaun Hamilton. I say that because, so where they traditionally line up in the Bears offense, they do move around, but Gabriel plays about half of his snaps at left wide receiver, which is where Ahkello Witherspoon has been playing, but Witherspoon was hurt, so they're going to be starting a backup cornerback on that side of the field. San Francisco has been pretty good against the run this year. I expect the Bears to run the ball, yes, but I think that Allen Robinson will match up with Richard Sherman a lot more than Taylor Gabriel will. Now, granted, Richard Sherman has not been good over the last couple weeks. He's been allowing tons in his coverage. I don't know if it's the year going on.
He's got to be playing banged up.
I don't know. I mean, the thing is teams weren't targeting him at the beginning of the season, and now we're seeing him targeted.
Because he was covering him so well, but he just looks a step slower right now.
But yeah, I do think that this is a game where it's like I really think that the Bears they need to get the passing game going. I know Trubisky's final line looks really good this past week, but I felt like he can be better. He can definitely be better, and Gabriel needs to be involved.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, we pretty much agree. Samuel, Gabriel, Hamilton. I've got Foster a little bit higher because I think he's really talented, but I agree this Bills offense is just not good. After that, if you need a wide receiver, you're really desperate, which way are you going? Robbie Anderson for the upside? Jordy Nelson's had some big games this year. Willie Snead, he's just been involved every single game. Antonio Callaway is a big play receiver. John Ross is a big play receiver. Anyone else you like?
Yeah, Robbie Anderson's the one I would play of that bunch. I mean, John Ross is interesting because just by the sheer volume he should get. I mean, I don't know how many targets he's going to get, but I mean, he's starting alongside.
Yeah, with AJ Green and Boyd out. But Driscoll, he's horrible. You want to talk about Cody Kessler being bad? Imagine if Driscoll was the backup quarterback for the Jags. He'd have 5 yards.
Yeah, Kessler's not very good. Either way, they're both career backups, and that's what they're going to be. But I think Robbie Anderson has been coming on as of late, and him and Sam Darnold have taken some time to kind of get that connection established. And the back end of the Packers defense is kind of weak in terms of their safety play. Trading away Clinton Dix has kind of changed that. They've had some injuries back there.
Why did they do that?
I don't know. That was them waving the white flag and saying they're not going anywhere this year. It made no sense to me. I didn't understand it. But at the same time, it is what it is. And but the Packers now have legitimately nothing to play for. So if there's somebody dinged up in that secondary, they might rest them. They might give some younger guys some chances to play. I have no idea. But what I do know is that Robbie Anderson and Sam Darnold are starting to develop some chemistry. Anderson has been seeing more and more targets, and I trust Darnold more than I trust Josh Allen, which is why between Robbie Anderson and Robert Foster, it would be tough for me to choose between the two. I'd probably lean Anderson, though.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I've got Robert Foster there. Even though Robbie Anderson did see 11 targets last week, I don't know if that's sustainable. They keep throwing the ball to Jermaine Kearse, even though he's having maybe the least efficient season I've ever seen out of a wide receiver. But Anderson, I don't know. You look at his game log, he just doesn't get that many targets. It's happened twice where he had a bunch of targets, and besides that, it's just kind of 4, 5, 6.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I get the idea. It's risky to start him. It's risky to start Foster, but both of them are like that kind of guy who they're going to see 6+ targets in the game. That's how I feel about those two. I would say that both of them are kind of one play guys. Like if you get one play out of them, they could make or break that week. I think Robbie Anderson could pay off with one catch. and that's definitely possible. I don't feel great about either of them. I think the top 3 are guys that...
Yeah, you should be able to get one of those guys.
Yeah, I would say the top 2, Samuel and Hamilton, are guys that I think you can start, especially in like a PPR format for Hamilton.
I think you could start Gabriel in the flex.
Yeah, Gabriel's interesting. Like, he's a guy that you could have that conversation about, but Robbie Anderson and Foster, those are kind of like guys that it's like, okay, if we need a last-ditch option and I'm going to search the waiver wire, those are the guys I'd go to.
Now, let's say Mike Williams is available in your league. Do you pick up him against Baltimore or Curtis Samuel?
I still say number 1, and the reason I say it because Phillip Rivers, I don't think Keenan Allen plays. I know that they put out a report today that they're hopeful that Keenan Allen, Melvin Gordon, and Austin Eckler return. I think Gordon and Eckler do. I don't think Keenan Allen does. I think they've learned their lesson with injuries and trying to get someone to play through. I've looked up on...
Especially with Allen, right? Because he is made out of glass.
Yeah, and the thing is, I looked up hip pointers, and I wanted to see like what players miss. And typically players miss 1 to 3 weeks with hip pointers. So, I mean, if he came back this week, he wouldn't miss a single game. I don't think that's right. I mean, they're going to have a little bit extra rest, but I think they play on Saturday. So it's not a full like 10 days rest or anything like that. I just don't feel like he's going to be there, which means Mike Williams is going to be a full-time player. I understand it's a tough matchup against the Ravens. It really is, but I think he should be getting 6+ targets. And a guy that can win jump balls, if Phillip Rivers gives him opportunities, I feel like that he's still going to be in like the top 36 plays for me. And that's hard to say about some of these other guys.
I've got Curtis Samuel way above him. Like I said, I'd put Samuel probably in my top 25 next week. Mike Williams against Baltimore will probably have him right around that 35 mark. So
yeah, that's probably, I'm like 30 to 35 range. Yeah.
Okay. All right, man, let's move on over to streaming quarterbacks and streaming tight ends, and both are just disgusting. First, though, I want to pick your brain. Every single Monday, it seems like we've been talking about the Super Bowl. I want you to give me, if you had to put your money down on one team right now, who would you take?
The Saints.
The Saints, okay.
Yeah, I think they're the most complete team in the league.
All right. I think I might go with the Chargers because the Saints have to get past the Rams and a bunch of other really good teams. The AFC seems kind of wide open. Like, I know you never want to bet against the Patriots, but they look pretty bad, and their defense is just a train wreck. The Chiefs have been so up and down lately, so I don't know. I think I would probably go with the Chargers.
Yeah, the Chargers aren't a bad team. And by the way, Bobby, it passed across my screen. Ian Rappaport tweeted out that the Chargers have indeed activated Hunter Henry, and they have 21 days to promote him to the active roster. So I don't know what's happening here. I really hope that this isn't true because I just feel like it's a bad idea.
Maybe it's just the kind of thing where they're trying to get the opponent to game plan for him.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Hunter Henry. I think he's going to be a good player for a long time.
I don't want him to get hurt. I want to draft him next year so bad.
Agreed. And that's the thing. Is just like this just screams like desperation. So I hope he doesn't play. Like, that's just me as a fan of him. But the Chargers are a really good football team. I think that I've seen inconsistencies in the play though, where it's like I don't know if they're as consistent. But then again, the Saints have been, as of late, their offense hasn't been clicking on all cylinders. Defense travels well in the playoffs, and we've seen the Saints, struggle at times. We've seen the Rams struggle at times, but
yeah.
There's so much parity in the league right now. It's an awesome time to be a football fan because it's like there is no clear-cut team that I think you can say 100% this team's going to the Super Bowl. People will say the Patriots, but if you've watched them the last couple of weeks, they haven't looked great. If you watch the Saints the last month, they haven't looked great. The Rams have looked terrible the last 3 weeks. The Bears have looked good, but Mitch Trubisky can he?
The Colts have looked awesome, so good.
Yeah, the Colts they're a sleeper team, man. Like, that team is really good. Like, their defense is playing better than I think anybody anticipated.
Best offensive line in the league, maybe?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, we're into the point of the conversation definitely can be had.
One of the best 3 quarterbacks in football. That's a dangerous team.
It is a dangerous team, and that's the thing is like you look at it. I think the Cowboys are a dangerous team because like Dak Prescott, when he's playing well, that team, the running game is there. Their defense has been so much better than anybody's given them credit for. I mean, they've only allowed one opponent this entire season to score more than 24 points. So that's what I'm saying. There's so much parity in the league right now that it's just nobody is the clear-cut, like 100% hands down. But if I had to pick one, that's what you said, I think the Saints, just because Drew Brees in the playoffs, he's going to have home field advantage. It's just a tough place to play.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a good call. I think the Saints are the favorite in the NFC right now, and they're a lot of fun to watch, man.
Mm-hmm.
All right, man, streaming quarterbacks. We go on Josh Allen again?
I didn't like Josh Allen last week because the matchup with the Lions, and honestly, it kind of worked out as I thought it would. He did post a solid fantasy day. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't great. It was fine, and he did a fine job. I actually think against New England, he's going to do better than fine. I think like when you have a negative game script like they're going to have in New England, you're going to have him drop back to pass. He's going to scramble even more often. They're not going to be running the ball a whole lot. I just feel like this game script, and that New England runs a lot of man coverage. So that's like when you like, I was looking at that earlier today. The Patriots have allowed the 10th most rushing yards to quarterbacks. They've allowed, and if you remember, if you go back to that Mitch Trubisky game, like Mitch Trubisky ran for a ton of yards on them. He had a touchdown in that game, but he should have had 2 of them. If you look at yards per carry against a defense, like for quarterbacks only, the Patriots have allowed 6.5 yards per carry, which is the most in the NFL to quarterbacks. So I happen to think that Josh Allen is going to be a fantastic streamer this week. Am I going to throw up while playing him? Abso-friggin-lutely. But I think he's a better play than he was last week.
You know who I think's a better play? And this is going to make you throw up, Tags. Case Keenum. He's got 90 pass attempts in the last 2 weeks. He goes up against Oakland. I think he's a fine bet. I think he's going to be just fine. I would trust him more than Josh Allen.
Oh, man. I've been here before with Case Keenum. I can't do it. I mean, I just can't. I really can't. Like, 'cause you take away Emmanuel Sanders, you take away Demaryius Thomas, and it's like this team, they just don't look very good. And Case Keenum has had good matchups the last couple weeks. Like, he has played against the Bengals he played against. He had 151 yards and a touchdown. Against the 49ers, 186 yards and a touchdown. And then they play the Browns without Denzel Ward last week, 257 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. I just feel like you're asking to just like win second place now that you're in the championship, like if you play him, because his ceiling, ever since they traded away Demaryius Thomas, his ceiling is 15 fantasy points. His floor is like 7.
That's gross.
It is disgusting. But that's what I'm saying. It's just a very boring. It's not a guy that's going to win you.
You probably don't need a streamer at quarterback if you're in the championship, but we're covering all the bases. Like maybe for the people in the consolation league who are trying to win a fake trophy. You know, a lot of people are going to be dropping Jameis Winston or Dak Prescott, who are owned and right about 55% of leagues each. They're both in decent matchups, especially Dak against Tampa. But Jameis Winston in a normal week is like a top 5 quarterback against Dallas. He's probably top 10. I think you can get by with starting Jameis Winston definitely over Josh Allen if he becomes available in your league.
Yeah, I think Josh Allen's definitely my favorite one. Mariota is interesting too. They're going to be returning home. He's played better at home against Washington. Washington, prior to holding, Cody Kessler to nothing, they had allowed, it was 7 passing touchdowns in their previous 3 games, and they do allow some rushing yards to quarterbacks. There have been, I think, 4 different quarterbacks who have rushed for more than 30 yards against them. So that's essentially tacking on another passing touchdown. So I think Mariota is interesting, but I definitely think that Josh Allen is the one that comes with the high floor, and I think he also comes with a high ceiling in that matchup.
All right, man, tight ends, and I trashed on Ian Thomas last week. Not on Ian Thomas, the player. He's an athlete. I think he's a quality football player, but the matchup against New Orleans was horrible. This week against Atlanta, though, it's not as bad. I think I like him as my favorite streamer. Do you have somebody else?
Yeah, Ian Thomas is definitely probably the one I would go with there.
Definitely, probably.
It's not pretty, man. Like, I was going through and doing my waiver wire stash article, and I just don't feel great about any of them. Like CJ Uzama, like he's been getting targets, but he's been terrible. Like his efficiency has been crap. Nick Vannett is like sharing time with Ed Dickson, not getting targeted in certain games. Like he's got a great matchup against the Chiefs. I think if there's one that's completely like crazy, that's available in like every single league, it's Blake Jarwin.
Great call, man. You watched that game and Dak Prescott was looking to him all the time. I like Jarwin in the preseason, but there was such a timeshare at tight end. Now that he's kind of emerging as the guy in Dallas, I like Blake Jarwin. I think he's a quality player.
Yeah, and the thing is like the matchup doesn't get any better than this. Like, so Tampa Bay, they've allowed a top 12 fantasy tight end in 11 of 14 games, which is like, that's just crazy. The safety play has been terrible. They lost Chris Conte earlier in the year. Justin Evans has been in and out of the lineup. They've had to lean on Jordan Whitehead and Isaiah Johnson as like to help out with tight ends, and it just hasn't been good. I mean, The concern here is that there shouldn't be a whole lot of pass attempts for Dak Prescott in this game. I think they're going to win the ball running. They're going to win this game by running the ball. So that's my concern with Jarwin. But so here's the thing. He ranked top 12 in routes run this week, and then he ranked top 4 in routes run among tight ends in week 14. So he's on the field. Like, I think he ranks in the top 8 for routes run over the last 2 weeks. So he's like been on the field, but Prescott has thrown the ball a little bit more over the last 2 weeks. if the volume is down, it's going to hurt him in that way. But when you look at the matchups, and it's like, if I'm going to play the matchups, Jarwin has probably the best matchup of anybody on the slate.
I think that's a good call. And Gerald Everett, if you're chasing touchdowns, always a good bet to go with the Ram. Tags, let's go DST. Is there a streamer that you like there?
Yeah, DST, it's another interesting week where it's like, I couldn't believe that the Cowboys were under 40% owned. But they're a team that I would definitely look to. You know, we've talked on the show before about how points allowed, it doesn't matter so much, but it does help when your defense has allowed, 23 or 24 points or less in 13 of 14 games. You have Tampa Bay with Jameis Winston. He had his first down week last week. I don't know if he lost some confidence while playing against Baltimore. I don't know, but the Bucs have thrown a league high 25 interceptions, and the Cowboys do rank top 12 in sacks. So it's like you put all these things together, pressure on Winston, maybe he throws the ball up, whatever the case is. I think that they're a good streaming option this week.
Even without pressure, I'm sure Winston's going to make a couple boneheaded plays. So, yeah, that's a good pickup. If you can't get them, I like Miami going up against Jacksonville. Frankly, I would like a high school team going up against Jacksonville. They've scored multiple touchdowns just 4 out of 14 games so far this season. Like I mentioned, Cody Kessler had like 76 passing yards. Their offensive line is a disaster. Multiple sacks are almost a guarantee. Multiple turnovers, probably under 15 points. I think Miami is definitely a safe play.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, man, we got some time for fact or fiction, so let me ask you this. Derrick Henry is an RB1.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to say yes to that.
That is so crazy, man. If I would have asked you that 3 weeks ago and said that we were actually talking about this as an option, you would have said there is no possible scenario, and I would have definitely agreed.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is like looking at it over the last 7 games, Washington's defense has like taken a turn for the worse, and I can't really explain it. Because they didn't lose any players to injury. They didn't trade anybody away. They added Clinton Dix, so maybe that changes things. I don't know. But whatever the case is, no team of running backs against them over the last 7 games has finished with less than 4.3 yards per carry. 5 of the 7 teams have rushed for at least 112 yards. They're allowing 5.24 yards per carry over that span. Like, there's just so many things to like about it. And it's like, you factor in that, Tennessee's been playing great defense, like the entire season, I should say. Like, that defense that's not the reason that they're struggling to make the playoffs. That defense is the reason they've been in a lot of games. So I happen to think they're going to run a lot. And like 33 carries last week, I mean, he looks fantastic the last couple weeks. And
21 in the first half too.
Yeah. So it's just like, I don't see a way where you get away from playing him. I mean, maybe I put him in like high-end RB2 territory, but he's definitely, you have to play him right now.
Fact or fiction, Tags. Because Melvin Gordon apologized to fantasy owners for sitting out the game, you're definitely going to draft him in the first round next year because you love him.
He does not need to apologize. It makes me like Melvin Gordon as a person. Like, so I don't like it when athletes, they come out and they say, I can care less about your fantasy team.
Yeah, like recognize where your fans are coming from.
That's where I'm at. And there's so many people on Twitter that's saying like, oh, I have no problem with them saying this. And I kind of have a problem with them saying this. It's like me telling, like, I have a job to do. My job is to write about fantasy sports. That's like me telling the reader saying, I can care less about you. That's stupid. Like, why would I do that? You guys are the ones who support us. You're the one who read our articles. We're the ones that watches Melvin Gordon play. You know what I mean? We're the ones who pay for his jerseys and all that. So it's like, I love that he came out and said that. Like Todd Gurley said, I should be the number 1 fantasy pick. I want to hear players talking about that because you should embrace the fantasy community. Does it mean that you have to apologize if you have a bad game? No. And people should never, ever go on Twitter and rag on people when they have a bad week in football. Like, if Todd Gurley has a bad week, you have no right to go and like rag on him. But I really do appreciate Melvin Gordon actually going out there and just like at least saying, I know I let you guys down. I'm sorry about that. He doesn't owe anybody an apology, but it's cool that he at least acknowledges his fans.
Fact or fiction, Tags. Sam Darnold will one day be a top 5 fantasy quarterback.
Fiction.
I loved him this last week, but yeah, I think people are going a little bit crazy. I don't think he's quite that good. I think he's more along the lines of like a Kirk Cousins type of guy who's going to be in the top 10 sometimes, but he's not really going to get his team over the top and take him to the Super Bowl. He'll be a quality play.
Yeah, I think the top 5 is reserved for the elite or quarterbacks who run the ball quite a bit, like a Cam Newton, and he's not either of those. Like, I don't think he's going to be an elite passer. I think Sam Darnold's going to be a fine quarterback. I think he is going to be a franchise quarterback. I would say that he's my number 2 quarterback in this class behind Baker Mayfield.
You like him more than Mullins?
Yeah. Yeah, I like him more than Mullins.
I mean, I know you're laughing, but like seriously, if you look at their numbers, it is not even close.
Oh, no, I know, but they also play in two completely different offenses and for different coaches. And
So you're saying if Darnold was playing for Shanahan, he would just be lighting the world on fire?
I don't like that Darnold was thrown in as a rookie under the fire. Like, he had no time to sit on the bench. He started week 1. Stupid. I don't think that quarterbacks should do that. I really don't. I would prefer them to sit an entire year, but if you want to make them sit for half a year, so be it. I mean, Baker had to go through the learning experience of like those windows closing. Baker's only going to get better. So is Darnold. Josh Rosen was thrown into a bad situation, but he looks terrible. Like, he's not getting any better. That's the concern. You want to see some improvement. Darnold has flashed at times. He makes some stupid decisions at times, but that's what happens with rookies. So I think he's going to be a franchise quarterback, but I do not believe that he's ever going to be considered in the game's elite quarterbacks.
All right, last question here, and this one is not fantasy oriented, but we're going to imagine for a second. Every single player in the NFL is released, and we are redrafting teams. If you are starting a dynasty right now, Patrick Mahomes is your number 1 quarterback. The fact or fiction is Baker Mayfield your number 2 quarterback to build around?
Fiction. I would actually have Aaron Rodgers as still number 1.
You would rather have Aaron Rodgers than Patrick Mahomes going forward?
Yep.
He's 35 years old.
I get it. He's not young, but he's a guaranteed producer, and it's like I'm not going to plan my franchise around 7 years down the road. Like,
you want to win you want to win tomorrow. I get it.
I want to win. Like, the thing is like the NFL, like, talent windows change. Like, drafts, like, they're only worth so much because you can only rebuild your franchise with like dominant players, and like you have to like find those dominant players. And when you have one, it's not to say that Mahomes isn't going to be great.
Could be the greatest ever, but
I disagree.
Okay, you disagree. We'll get to that in a second, but let me say this. So if Aaron Rodgers was with Andy Reid and he had Sammy Watkins, he had Kareem Hunt, he had Tyreek Hill, he had Travis Kelce, would he have already broke the record?
I would think so.
Yeah, I think he's way better than Mahomes. I think Mahomes could be absolutely incredible. He's already putting together maybe the best season of all time, but I think a lot of that comes from the offense. And Rodgers was stuck with a horrible coach, nothing supporting him around him. He's playing injured. I agree. I think a lot of people are forgetting just how good Aaron Rodgers is. And I was going to say Baker would be my number 2, but you kind of talked me into it. I think I'd rather have Rodgers.
Yeah, I mean, Baker's up there. Like, I do think Baker's going to be considered one of the game's elite. Like, I do think that he's one of those guys. Like, but as for Mahomes, I watch a lot of football, and that's why I appreciate Aaron Rodgers so much. And I can appreciate Patrick Mahomes. I think there's things that he does that cannot be taught. You know, some of his physical traits, his arm strength, all that. But he's developing some very bad traits, and he's doing things that are not resulting in turnovers that are going to start resulting in turnovers down the road. Like, you cannot continue to do some of the stuff that he does and expect it to keep working. Like, he throws the ball into double coverage. He throws the ball up into 50-50 situations. He throws the ball with his left hand when he doesn't even have to. He throws no-look passes. He throws off his back foot. Like, all these things have worked, and that's why people are loving him right now, and I get it. And yes, he's my number 1 fantasy quarterback. He's probably my number 1 dynasty quarterback because he's going to be great. He's going to be really good for a long time. But what I'm saying is just like, there's going to be some backfire from the stuff that he does. Like, I watch way too much football to say that this guy is just untouchable. He is touchable, and like, it's going to reverse itself. Like, Patrick Mahomes is going to be drafted in the first round of fantasy leagues next year, and people are going to regret it.
He's not Tom Brady. He's not Aaron Rodgers. He's John Elway, right? That's what we've been hearing about him. He's Brett Favre. That's a great quarterback, but I don't know if it's the best of all time.
Right. And yeah, I just like, I really hope that, you know, Andy Reid is like, understand. I know you want to keep the kid's confidence high, but he also has to get back to basics at some point and say, hey, look, this isn't going to work forever. Like, I'm glad you got away with it, but hey, we got to stop doing this, or we got to stop doing this.
He's also got 5.5 times as many interceptions as Aaron Rodgers. And if you saw Rodgers last week, it was tipped by his wide receiver. Should have been caught.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. I mean, that's the thing. Rodgers, I mean, I do consider him the best of all time. Obviously, his play this year has been like lackluster, and it's crazy when you look at his stats to think, wait, that's lackluster? But yes, he's had somewhat of a down year. He's never had an elite coach. So it's like, I want to see who the Packers bring in this offseason. It can really change the perception on how great he is. But yeah, Patrick Mahomes is fantastic. I mean, I might even take Baker over him as my quarterback.
Whoa. All right.
In terms of like choosing one of them. But I'm not going to sit here and say that it's not a conversation. It is a conversation.
Your Twitter is going to get blown up. By the way, guys, it's at Mike Tinkler NFL if you want to tweet him for that take. I love it, though, man, because Baker is my dude. He's so great.
That's the thing. Is like I said, Mahomes is great and all that, but I still don't believe that he should be on an island and considered the consensus number 1 quarterback of the future.
I'm going to post a Twitter poll for this.
Oh boy.
Let's see what the people say. All right, Tags. That's all for today's show. I'm really glad we had that conversation at the end because that was a lot of fun. And good luck, everyone, in your championship week. We've got a start-sit show coming up, and we've also got the DFS show coming up, which we're going to have every single week into the playoffs. Thanks to the sponsor of today's show, Leesa Mattresses. We're going to get $160 off your Leesa mattress at leesa.com/FantasyPros. And don't forget to check out bettingpros.com that we just launched. For Mike Tagliere, I'm Bobby Sylvester. Thanks for listening, and enjoy your football.
I just wanted you to watch me dissolve.